Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Immigrant Blueprint. My name is Attorney Ebony Anuforo. I am an immigration attorney. I'm located in Jersey City. However, I do represent clients in all 50 states regarding U.S. immigration. Now, today, I want to dive into an important and life-changing immigration option called VAWA, which stands for the Violence Against Women Act. Now, even though it's called the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA protections apply to both men and women alike. And it continues to be one of the most powerful paths to permanent residency in the United States. And for individuals who have experienced abuse or extreme cruelty at the hands of their US citizen or lawful permanent resident family member. In 2025, this law remains a critical safeguard, and there are some practical updates and key reminders that you should know if you are considering or you're currently pursuing a VAWA case. So, number one, I first want to talk about what is VAWA and who qualifies in 2025. So VAWA allows certain immigrants to self-petition for lawful permanent residence without needing the abuser's help or even their knowledge. Now, this is especially important because many abusers use immigration status as a tool of control, threatening deportation, withholding sponsorship, or even destroying documents. And I've seen all of these three examples in my experience handling VAWA cases over the past years. So you may qualify for VAWA if you are one, the spouse of a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident, including the former spouse if your marriage ended in divorce or death. But you have to be sure that if it's based on divorce, it hasn't been more than 2 years at the time that you apply. If you're the child who is under 21 and unmarried of an abusive US citizen or lawful permanent resident, or if you're the parent of a US citizen who's 21 or older who has subjected you to abuse or extreme cruelty. So you must also show that you had a qualifying relationship, which is what I just explained, right? How you're related to your abuser, that you've lived with your abuser at some point, and there's no specific time frame for how long you have to show that you've lived with your abuser. You just have to show evidence that you've lived with your abuser at some time, that you suffered a battery or extreme cruelty at the hand of your abuser, and that you are a person of good moral character. Now, when applying for VAWA, it's important to understand battery or extreme cruelty. Now, a common question that I get from clients is what counts as abuse, right? So I want to just tell you that in VAWA cases, abuse isn't just limited to physical harm. A lot of people have that misconception that if you were physically hit by your abuser, that is the only way that you would qualify for VAWA, and that's not the case. Emotional, psychological, sexual, financial, and even immigration related abuse all count towards abuse when it comes to VAWA cases. So some examples include constant insult from your abuser, humiliation or isolation from family or friends, threats to have you deported or take your children away from you, controlling your money, controlling your documents, right? Taking away your freedom of movement, right? Physical abuse obviously does count, or even sexual coercion will count towards abuse when it comes to VAWA cases. So if you've been through any of this, you may have a strong case even if you never called the police, right? Even if you don't have medical records, there is no requirement that you have to call the police or report the abuse in order to qualify for VAWA. USCIS understands that many survivors don't report abuse due to fear or even cultural stigmas, right? So they accept other forms of evidence like affidavits, text messages, counseling records if you have them, or even witness statements from people who have knowledge of the abuse that you're going through. Now, so what are some of the new or important updates or information about VAWA in 2025? So while the core law hasn't really changed dramatically regarding VAWA in 2025, there are some changes that I'd like to address. For example, processing times, right? So processing times for VAWA remain very long. They were long for a while now, but as of 2025, we're seeing that VAWA can take anywhere from 30 to 40 months for the Perform I-360 to be adjudicated, depending on your local USCIS center. But the good news is that once your case has been prima facie determined, you may qualify for certain benefits, right? And you may also even qualify for work authorization, public assistance, right, in some states. So that's a good news, right? There's also a stronger focus on trauma-informed adjudication. So USCIS officers are being trained to better understand trauma responses, meaning that when they're reviewing your particular case, they're going to have a greater sensitivity to the realities of the abuse, that, survivors are going through and what those different trauma responses look like. There is continued protection for derivative children. So if you're filing as a spouse, your children, even if they weren't abused, can still be included in your VAWA petition. So now some of the common mistakes that you want to avoid when applying for VAWA in 2025, I want to talk about that because we are seeing cases being rejected for mistakes a lot more now. So you want to make sure that you are very careful. So even though VAWA provides strong protections, we are seeing that many self-petitioners do, unfortunately hurt their cases when they do the following, right? So submitting incomplete evidence is a big one. So especially if you have to prove that you had a shared residence with your spouse, you have to be able to provide evidence that at some point you did live with your spouse. Evidence of your good moral character is also required, so you want to make sure that you submit that. Relying only on your affidavit without supporting documentation is also something that could affect your case. While your personal statement, your declaration is very important and it is strong evidence for FAWA cases, you want to also provide additional supporting evidence that will corroborate your declaration if you have it. A lot of times people say they don't have evidence, but in talking with them and doing an intake with them and consulting with them, we discovered that they have a lot more evidence than they know. Forgetting to update USCIS is very, very important, is very important and can lead to, you having your case terminated or denied. Whenever you move or you change your contact information, you want to make sure that you are notifying USCIS of that change, right? And then filing late after, a divorce or something like that. So we do have people who do come to us and unfortunately they waited to after the 2-year mark to apply for VAWA and they no longer qualify for VAWA. In those cases, we do also do an intake to see maybe they might qualify for another immigration benefit like a U visa or a T visa. So we tend to tell those clients all is not lost. There might be other options for them in order to apply for humanitarian benefits based on their abuse. Now, remember, the details matter, right? The best VAWA cases are going to be organized, they're going to be detailed, and they're going to be consistent. One of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we prepare a very strong, detailed, and organized petition for our clients. That way, we give them the best chance at having success with their VAWA cases. Now, currently in our firm, we have 100% approval rate for VAWA. We pray and we hope that we continue to have the same success, but that is what we have experienced so far because we make sure that we're very meticulous in providing a very organized and detailed VAWA application for our clients. So once your VAWA petition is approved, you can often move forward with your green card application, which is the form I-485. In many cases, if our clients qualify, we file the I-485 concurrently with the VAWA application so that once it's approved, the next step is typically USCIS either calling them in for an interview for the I-485 or approving it with the waiver. In 2025, we are seeing that less waivers, and if not all, most cases are being called in for interview. So you can expect that if you're applying for VAWA, as of the date of this video, that if when you are called or you do get approved, that you will be called in for an interview. So I want to say this, right? For many of my clients, filing for VAWA is not just about a legal process. It's an emotional journey for them. It's an emotional journey towards their independence, towards their healing, right? It's about reclaiming your voice. It's about taking back your future, right? So if you're listening to this and you think that you might qualify for VAWA or you're unsure, I encourage you to talk to a trusted immigration attorney who has experience handling VAWA cases. You do not have to go through this alone. If you work with an experienced immigration attorney, you give yourself a better chance at finally getting the freedom that you deserve. Okay. So VAWA continues to provide protection to survivors in 2025, despite everything that we are hearing regarding US immigration, and it remains one of the most compassionate laws in US immigration. I believe that it's proof that, you know, when you apply for VAWA, your story doesn't just end with abuse, right? It gives you the chance to begin again. It gives you the chance towards safety. It gives you the chance towards stability, right? Towards eventually getting legal status. So if you or someone you know may qualify for VAWA, feel free to reach out. My office represents clients in all 50 states. We handle VAWA cases confidentially and we handle them with care. So you can call us, you can WhatsApp us to schedule a consultation. And I want you to remember that every case is different and results will vary. But regarding our advocacy and regarding the fight that we put up for our clients, that it will always remain the same. So thank you for watching and tuning into the Immigrant Blueprint. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear and see more videos like this. Take care.